Hey, MCE crew. Today we're going to talk about how to live a comfortable life. Now, I need you to perform a thought experiment before we get into that. I want you to think back to a momentous occasion in your life. Be it you got a house, you had a child, you graduated with a degree, or maybe you started a business, got that promotion at work. Think back. Met the love of your life, whatever it is, okay? Make it something positive. Think back, and now think back to how many years ago that was, okay? For some of us, it's going to be more years than for others. Now I want you to think, if that, for me, a lot of those are 20 years ago, okay? So if it's 10, 20 years ago for you, now what I want you to do is that now that you picked that particular incident, you've identified how many years ago it was. Now I want you to think about how quickly you progressed from that point to this point. Does it seem like that happened just yesterday for you? Buddy of mine, he's passed away now. He passed away earlier this year. We used to always measure time in Rocky 3. We used to say, wow, it's been 30 years since Rocky 3 came out. And I saw the movie in the theaters. I was a child, but I was old enough to understand what was going on, okay? I wasn't a baby. And so we measured time in Rocky 3, and we measured time in when we graduated from high school. And our minds would always be blown at how much time passed and how quickly it passed in terms of our perception. Okay, so now that you've identified that point, you've identified that amount of time that went by, now I want you to take that amount of time and I want you to add it to your current age. And you just think about how old you'll be when that same amount of time passes from this point to whenever, okay? Think about what age you will be. Some of you will say to yourselves, I'll be in my 50s, or I'll be, in my 70s, or chances are I won't be here at all. Now, the reason I want you to think about that is because every single moment that we're alive, we have to fight for our dreams. Now I'm going to do something. I do not begrudge anyone who works a job or is a career person. I was once a career person. So we go through stages in life. I was a career person working for a corporation, corporate America. But right now I'm speaking to those of us who understand the need to fulfill our lives via working toward our goals, okay? Not the goals of the shareholders of Verizon or Constellation Energy or Walmart or Amazon. I'm not saying that you should quit your job. If you are fulfilled in part by that job, then fine, okay? To each his own. But I know that there is a contingent of American out there today, a contingent of human being, no matter where you're living in the world, who understands that when you work for corporate America, you are trading your time for discounted dollars. And the higher up you are on the food chain, the less time you have. And the more of a discount your employer gets for that time. Okay? I've lived that before I left the corporate arena. Now, let me talk to you about something real quick to put some things in perspective for you, scientifically and philosophically, as far as time goes. Then we're going to get into how to live that comfortable life. Scientifically speaking, we humans, are moving through time. Everything on this planet, in this universe, is moving through time at just under the speed of light. Brian Greene is a physicist. I've read all of his books, quantum physicist. Pick up his book, Fabric of the Cosmos. And he goes into how we're moving through time and space, but we're moving through time at almost the speed of light. See, we're moving through this thing called space-time at the speed of light, but we're only moving through space at a small percentage of the speed with which we are moving through time. Okay? It's a scientific fact. Now let's look at it from a philosophical standpoint. Most people, you probably included, have the perception that time passes faster the older we get. So when you were in school waiting for 3 o'clock, maybe you were 15 years old, the last 7 years was 50% of your life. But when you turn 100 years old, the last 7 years is going to be 7% of your life. So the way the brain categorizes our information, it is theorized that since as we get older, we have more experience in time, each passing increment of time becomes a smaller percentage of our existence, and therefore we get this perception of acceleration through time. That is also one of the reasons why scientists think that we would have a problem aging, achieving ages over like 120 years old, because our brains would not be able to process the perceived acceleration through time. All right, so having said all of that, let's now talk about how to live a comfortable life. Society would have us believe that if we simply get a job, well, first you got to go to college, okay? Well, first you really got to go to school. And yeah, you do need to learn some things in your formative years, okay? I am an advocate for a private school situation. And when I say private school, I don't mean that's something that you necessarily pay for. I believe in homeschooling, private schooling, a combination thereof, small group schooling in the formative years, the grade school years. Because if you look at society today, especially in a lot of the inner cities, you see that the public school model really ain't working too good. Now, that public school model is built on what's called the Prussian model, which is designed to make obedient followers. That's what it's designed to create. Look it up, the Prussian model of education, which was transplanted to this country and has been doing a good job of creating people who cannot critically think and do not have any type of a sense of history and their place in it. For most people, history starts with the year they were born. They can't see past it. That's why a lot of people will say, oh, this is the hottest year ever. Maybe to you, but to the planet Earth, the 4 billion year old planet Earth, maybe not. So when we talk about how to live that comfortable life, they want to see you in these government structured and strictured school systems. Then they want to send you off to a college or a university where a degree will be conferred upon you. And once that happens, then your level of intellect is unquestionable. I had someone tell me the other day, I think I have appendicitis. And they pointed to their left side. I said, well, your appendix is on your right. You probably don't have appendicitis. You're not a doctor. I don't need to be a doctor to know some basic facts about anatomy. So we're moving away from that point in history, in American history, in humanity in general, where you can just be a learned person without a degree. Okay, you've got to have the degree. Now, to his credit, Elon Musk is saying, I'm not concerned about your degree as long as you can do the job with certain positions that he has in SpaceX and Tesla. Hooray for him. Then most people are still going to be predilected toward getting the job, going into corporate America or becoming a lawyer. I know so many lawyers who are like just not versed on basic legal precedent. All right. I'm no lawyer, but I read. I was discussing something with a lawyer a while back on a TV show. We were doing a commentary on a TV show, and I ended up having to school her on a legal precedent dealing with Heller versus Washington, D.C., Second Amendment case. Whatever. Anyway, my point is, then you go work for the government or the corporate entity. You basically participate in helping build someone else's dream, okay? Usually the share owners. Now, I know there is, I would not mind working for SpaceX, okay? Because you're working on something momentous, something that will change the world, okay? Would I be willing to abdicate my entire life to that project? Absolutely not. But that's just me. So this is how you do it. You get in, then you work 30 years, and then after 30 years, you retire. And this is the bill of goods they've sold you on retirement. Retire and make a portion of what you were making when you were in the work world, and then get services like Medicare, Social Security, which I wouldn't bank on. And believe me, a lot of the people, as they age, they get on medications that not even certain plans or Medicare will help them to be able to afford vital medications. And, retire and then die soon thereafter. Maybe you'll last about 15 to 20 years, okay? Hopefully that time will not be spent in infirmity. So what's the alternative? Considering that we are in and out of here, this existence, at the speed of light. Well, it is figuring out what your purpose is, what will fulfill you, and being uncomfortable, quite frankly. I was very uncomfortable when I left corporate America, and my wife and I inherited that trucking company, and it didn't work out, okay? I was very uncomfortable when we would have invoices due from other contractors, people we'd ship loads for, and they would slow pay. And the reason I was uncomfortable with that is because I was responsible for making a payroll and having people get a check. And we did that consistently. We never missed a paycheck for any of our employees when we had that trucking company. Now, we might have missed compensation, but our employees never did. Our suppliers never did. So there was some discomfiture there. But it was a hell of a learning experience that I'm extremely proud of, even though we had to sell that company. And we sold it not at a loss, but we broke even. So we didn't get anything out of it other than experience. It was uncomfortable, but it prepared us for the other entrepreneurial endeavors that we got in subsequently, and they have worked out extremely well for us. So we had to go through a little storm before we come out on the other side with greater experience, okay, and greater expertise. So I would encourage you not to seek comfort at all costs, literally at all costs. If you're seeking comfort and prioritizing it above fulfillment, what you're actually doing is you're going to jeopardize your ability to achieve comfort, real comfort, down the road. And that comfort is going to be what you risk jeopardizing is going to be characterized by an inability to pass on wealth. The pharaohs of Egypt learned that they couldn't take it with them. Fine. But do you know most Americans pass away with less than $20,000? It's just enough to pretty much bury you these days. Not enough to perpetuate wealth like the Rockefellers have, and have your name live on, or your legacy live on. Did you know John D. Rockefeller was instrumental in the formation of Spelman University, the all-women's university down in the South? Yes, he was. His name's not on it, though, because he wasn't big on that. Spelman was actually the maiden name of his wife. But that school has been educating people for God knows how long now, turning out some fine graduates. And that's because of Rockefeller's financial legacy. So that's one way that even though your time here might be done, your work here can reverberate throughout history and actually change not only your life, but the lives of countless others. So, just a philosophical approach today. As you move into 2022, understand that comfort is oftentimes the enemy. Time is moving at the speed of light. Literally. Before we know it, 20 years is going to be passed by again. Okay? A lot can happen in 20 years, for good or for, not so good. So use the time wisely. And look, here's the last thing I want to point out. Social media has provided this false notion that the opinions of others matter more than they actually do. Everybody's got an opinion. Don't let those opinions negatively impact your mission. You want to start a business? Start a business. There's never been a better time. There's a lot of turmoil going on in the economy today, in the world, okay, socially, politically, economically. However, there's also never been a better time to get a business started. Whether it be staking your claim on some digital real estate, like a YouTube channel, or some other type of business. There will be naysayers. There will be people, so many businesses fail. So many businesses fail every year. You might want to stay at that job. This is what I would encourage you to do. Before you take financial or business advice from someone, understand the position that they are in. Okay? My buddy, that same one I was telling you about that passed away, we used to always joke because he was a good guy, but he wasn't good with money. And we were talking one day and he was like, what would my advice to someone be to get rich? And he said, we laughed about it because he said, play lotto. He didn't know about money and he didn't pretend to. So be careful who you take advice from, okay? If the person you're taking from advice from is broke, then they're probably not going to be the best sounding board in terms of bouncing your business ideas off of, your entrepreneurial ideas off of. And a lot of people say, well, I don't have access to anybody that's rich and wealthy. Sure you do. Sure you do. The internet, you might not be able to sit down and have lunch with Warren Buffett or Jeff Bezos or any of these luminaries. I'll give you one who's not with us anymore, Reginald Lewis. Reginald Lewis wrote a book called Why Should White Guys Have All the Fun? Don't let the title fool you. Don't judge a book by its cover. This guy was one of those guys who perfected the leveraged buyout method that Mitt Romney has used to a great degree to become wealthy. Pick it up. Reginald Lewis, Why Should White Guys Have All the Fun? So you do have access to all of the wealthy people who have ever lived and written a book or are saying something in an interview on the internet. Yes, you do. And you can use that to ladder up to other associations. I've used that with my relationship with a former bank head, CEO and founder of a bank here in the Maryland area, Mid-Atlantic area. I've used that with my good friend Damian Gwynn, who is a wealthy man, okay? And I laddered up to be able to have an association with him. And I still rely on the internet and books to understand the minds of wealthy people. Titan is a book about John D. Rockefeller. Pick it up. Steve Jobs by Isaacson. Pick it up. All right, guys, so this is, again, just some level setting as we go into 2022, because I'm going to be talking a lot more about starting your own business. Because by 2030, if you haven't really gotten a firm foundation, you're going to own nothing and you're going to be unhappy. Don't trust Klaus. He says you're going to own nothing and be happy. That's a lie. You're going to own nothing and be unhappy. Okay? All right, guys, I'll talk to you soon.